Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. So it is almost Friday and we have had the busiest week ever. We went up and back from Dublin yesterday with so many delays between like storms down here and train breaking down and all the things you could imagine, but we actually did have a really enjoyable day and I have huge projects coming early next year that I honestly can't wait to fill you in on. I think it's going to be really soon that I can actually start speaking about some of them. Since I am taking a gap year from college, I did want to make the most out of it, and so far we have loads of things planned that I can't wait to fill you in on. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled across my channels for any hints I might be dropping before I can speak about them. But anyway, I am up, had my pre-workout meal, had my pre-workout rave with Gary, our usual morning routine in the kitchen before we train. And it's leg day for both of us today, so I'm going to be focusing on glutes and hamstrings. So I'm kind of spreading out my hamstring and quad workouts at the moment. So I'm going to be doing glutes and hamstrings today, and I have a fairly gruesome workout in mind, so I'm going to record that and bring you through it with me. Okay guys, so I'm going to do a little bit of a voiceover for this workout and talk you through what I did. So I went for a higher volume workout in my hamstring and glute training session today. So firstly here you'll see me doing a single leg curl. So I've been leaning towards single leg movements more often in my leg workouts recently because I picked up a hip injury a couple of years ago, and in the winter it always seems to get a niggle again. So doing single leg movements can really pinpoint if you're having problems on one side of your body compared to the other, and it can prevent you from compensating onto the other leg as well. So I did 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps, and then I did 1 set to failure of the leg curl. So next up you'll see me doing some Romanian deadlifts, and I did 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps on this, getting down as low as I possibly can at the end of the movement and really trying to focus on my mind muscle connection with my hamstrings on this, and not really squeezing my glutes at the top, to be honest, because I really did want to focus on just my hamstrings here and leaving them lead the way for the movement. Okay, so next up you'll see me doing sumo squats with a kettlebell, and I do 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps. Firstly I do full reps, and then next I go into a pulsing movement in the sumo squat position as well. So I basically did 1 set of 12 to 15 and then drop the weight and straight into the pulsing movement for 30 seconds after each set, and my quads, glutes and hamstrings were absolutely on fire. So next up you'll see me doing hip thrusts, my absolute go-to on leg day. So I did 3 sets of 10 to 12 and then I dropped the weight and did 1 set to failure. So the set you're watching now is my final set to failure. I personally think hip thrusts are an absolute must in every leg session if you want to be activating your glutes and growing them. So next up you'll see me doing side kicks with a plate, and also I added a resistance band to this movement as well to make it a bit more difficult. So this one will target the side of your glute. You'll see me floating my leg from the front and then waving it to the back each time, so I'm not just keeping it at the back because I want to focus on the entire side of my glute. So after I did both legs on the side kicks, I supersetted this exercise with the seated leg curl. So I was doing 12 to 15 with my side kicks, and I was just doing 3 sets to absolute failure with the seated leg curl at the end of my workout because I like finishing off strong at the end of each leg day. Okay guys, I'm back from the gym and I just had my post-workout meal. So today I had a bit of a weird one. So you'll see I had the tuna and mayo sandwiches, but I also had a muffin on the way home in the car because I was just really hungry. So it's a bit of a mixture today. And in case you're wondering, I am still sticking to the if it fits your macros approach at the moment. I haven't gone back to sticking to meal plans yet, because I'm actually just quite enjoying the if it fits your macros approach, and I'm finding it a lot easier to stick to than what I would have before, because I just feel like I'm a lot more disciplined now and I'm able to make better food choices without just going off the rails and eating loads of chocolate and ridiculous foods every day, because that was something I struggled with before when I did if it fits your macros. I was just eating a load of shit, and obviously that's not good either. I know it comes down to calories and it comes down to macros, but I just felt worse at the end of the day when I was just filling my body with like shitty food, whereas now I can still take that approach but eat healthy foods and also have a few treats from time to time. So that was a really good session. I didn't get to record my warm up and things like that, but what I am going to do now is sit down and chat to you about some tips I have for training glutes. So I've done this in one of my previous videos probably like 5 or 6 months ago, so it's been a while since I spoke about glute training, and obviously who doesn't want to learn about training glutes? So I'm going to sit down now and have a little chat with you about the approach I take when training glutes and some tips and tricks that I implement into my own training routine when training them. So I'm going to set this up here. Okay, so I have my coffee at the ready that Gary's hairdresser got for me because he's very, very kind. And I wanted to just sit here and speak about my glute training tips and techniques and the things I incorporate into my own training sessions, as I mentioned. So there's 3 things that come to mind when I think about glute training. So the first thing would be activation. So I actually didn't record my glute activation before my training session today, but I did include it in my last workout clip, which will be in the video before this if you do want to check it out. But to be honest, it's nothing crazy at all, but it is very, very important to activate your glutes before you train them. Not just to warm them up and to prevent injury, but to also start thinking about the muscle group before you get into your heavier lifts. You don't really need to go out and get any expensive equipment or accessories for warming up your glutes. I literally picked up a resistance band for like €2 or something, and I get all my glute activation work done with that before every session for the last year or so, and it's still working perfectly. So you don't need the most expensive equipment. Once you have a fine sturdy resistance band, then that's all you're really going to need to warm up your glutes. So I normally just do some regular side kicks, some glute kickbacks, some crab walks and some regular squats to warm up my glutes, and I normally give it like 5 to 10 minutes of activation, because it is really, really important, as I said, to prevent injury, because I've been there with hip and glute injuries before, and trust me, it's the worst thing in the world when you really, really want to train but you can't because you haven't been warming up properly. And as I said, for the mind muscle connection, because if you can practice your mind muscle connection, it will really, really work in your favor with all your muscle groups. It's not just for your glutes at all. So as I said, give it 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Once you're pumping blood into the area and thinking about the muscle group before you train it, then that should be sufficient enough. And I'd also, in the winter, especially when it's a bit colder in the gym, I would do maybe like 5 to 10 minutes on the bike or the treadmill just before I start training as well, to get the blood flowing. So the second thing that comes to mind when I think about glute training or training any body part, to be honest, is progressive overload. So I'm sure any of my long-term subscribers are probably blue in the face from hearing me speak about progressive overload, but honestly I can't stress the importance of this enough. So there are a couple of different ways for incorporating progressive overload into your workout. So the 3 main ways that come to mind for me would be increasing your weight as your workouts go on, increasing the reps at the same weight as your workouts go on, or else decreasing your rest periods. But as much as you want to include these, your form must not be compromised at any stage throughout this, because that obviously means you're not ready to increase the reps, or else you're not ready to increase the weight. So just to give you an example of progressive overload, let's say this week I squatted 60 kilos for 8 to 10 reps comfortably for 2 to 3 sets. When it comes to next week's session, if I did that comfortably last week, I would either aim to increase the reps at the same weight, or else increase the weight and hopefully stay at the same reps without like having to go down to 6 reps. So I normally increase the reps before I increase the weight if it is with a heavier compound, because sometimes I just need to gain confidence in the movement before I do increase the weight. And then obviously decreasing rest periods just speaks for itself. Instead of having 1 or 2 minutes between each set, maybe you should try reduce it to 30 seconds and up the intensity of your workouts. And as I said, that's for glute training, but it's also for any other type of training. If you're training shoulders, if you're training back, legs, no matter what you're training, you should be incorporating progressive overload if you want to see progress over time. And the third thing that comes to mind when it comes to training glutes would be the frequency. So the frequency can either work in your favor or else it can work against you. So some people think that training glutes 3 to 4 times a week is optimal, that you're getting blood into the area, you're training as hard as you can 3 or 4 times a week, but you're also not getting the results you want. And that's probably because you're overtraining and you're not giving yourself enough time to recover. And I've been guilty of this before, where I've just been so motivated, all I wanted to do was train. I was giving my maximum intensity every single time, doing like ridiculous amount of sets and reps, and I still wasn't getting the progress I wanted to see. And that's because I wasn't giving myself enough time to recover. So the ideal frequency for me at the moment is probably 2 and at a push 3 times a week for glutes. So I would never train legs, like an overall leg day, 3 times a week, because it's honestly just too much for a small natural female. So at the moment I normally do like maybe 2 overall leg days, and if my recovery and sleep is good that week, I'd add in an extra few glute exercises at the end of an upper body day or on a rest day. But if my body isn't ready and if I'm not recovered fully, then I won't add in that extra glute session, because it will do me no good. It will actually probably halt my progress more than anything else. So on the other end of that, if you're not training consistently, and if you're training glutes maybe once 1 week, then not training for 2 weeks and then going back to it, then of course you're not going to get the results you want in that scenario either. So you have to find the happy medium where you're training at a good intensity and a good frequency, where you have enough time to recover and grow in between sessions. And then of course, I'm not even going to go into the nutrition side of things, because that's for a whole other day, but your nutrition has to be on point to complement your training too, and that's just a given. But those would be the 3 top things that come to mind for me when training glutes, and as I said, when training any other body part too. So we have to activate the muscle group, warm it up, think about it, get that mind muscle connection going. You have to incorporate progressive overload, or else you're literally just going to be repeating the same sessions and not getting good results. And as I said, the third point would be frequency and finding the right balance where you can train at a good intensity and also recover in time for your next session. But anyway guys, I must have a shower and do a food shop and go and visit my dogs and do X, Y and Z tonight, and I have a load of things to do and my camera is actually about to die. So I'm going to call it a day for this video, but I hope you enjoyed it guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.